We have very good avocados, and I can say this without any fear of contradiction. We have the best tea and coffee in the world, so we can bring our products in our agricultural sector. We want to add value, so we'll be able to discuss those things. In terms of peace and security, we are partnering in many aspects, and we have to thank you for the continued partnership. But also in terms of jobs and education, we've discussed and we'll be discussing about scholarships for Kenyans and others, but also jobs and opportunities. We want to thank you for your migration policy, and we've discussed about Kenyans migrating to Canada to work and live in Canada. We allow dual citizenship, so that's okay. They can come, and we're happy. They're Canadian, they're Kenyans, we're happy. But also, we've also talked about seasonal workers. And Canada has large market, if I can say, or demand for seasonal workers. So people go and work in farms, in factories, in seasonal for a few months and then come back home. And here in Kenya, we say kazi ni kazi. So work is work. So we're looking forward to those opportunities, and we'll be discussing them more. Then we've got the temporary skilled workers. Canada has a requirement for, I think, medical field workers, nurses, doctors, and all that. And so we're working on a framework so we can get a lot of our nurses and doctors to go to Canada in addition to that. Minister Joly, let me talk to you a little bit about democracy. We have learned a lot from Canada. We've learned a lot from the Western world about democracy. And Kenya is universally recognized as a model of democracy, where our system of governance is regulated by the supreme law of the land, and that is our constitution. President William Ruto was duly elected in conformity and consistent with the dictates of our constitutional dispensation. And we are not here to debate the election of President Ruto. That decision was settled by Kenyans and by the country's judicial institutions in 2022. In the same vein, it is vital that political players in Africa respect electoral outcomes as a way of entrenching democracy and fostering post-election stability in the continent. This is very important. Let me say this again. In the same vein, it is important and vital that political players in Africa, and especially here in Kenya, respect electoral outcomes as a way of entrenching democracy and fostering post-election stability in the continent. Leaders must learn to respect democratic outcomes. An election has winners and losers. That is why it's an election. You don't go for an election expecting that you must win. Chances of losing are 50-50. You lose, some win. And countries and the international community should send, and we are requesting as Kenya, that yourself as Canada and the other international players should send a strong signal and message to people who disrupt democracy. It is not enough to say that you participate in an election and then you go ahead and fight against democratic governments. So people need to be told that that kind of behavior will not be allowed anywhere in the world. And I want to reiterate that the government of Kenya is fully committed to ensuring and enforcing the rule of law in the country, consistent with the Constitution. And so all we are saying is that we want to have democracy. And it's just like any institution. There are good guys and bad guys. There are people who misbehave. There are people who behave properly. When people behave well, they are rewarded. When people misbehave, they are rewarded accordingly or punished accordingly. And we are saying that we are telling the international community, be careful who you associate with some of these players who are fighting democracy. This continent of Africa really needs to have democracy. The things we are talking about, Sudan, DRC, other issues, they all come down to democratic principles. And Kenya has shown that we can have a good democratic government. I'll hand over to you before we go to issues of regional peace.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, dear Secretary Mutua. It's a pleasure to be here, dear Alfred. The first time we met was actually at the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Germany last November. It had just been a week that you've been appointed, and yes, already you were the most popular guy in the room. So it's great to be here in your country. And I'll be speaking French a bit because obviously Canada is a bilingual country. Donc, cela va sans dire, le Canada et le Kenya partagent une relation très spéciale. Depuis 60 ans maintenant, nos pays travaillent ensemble pour relever des défis les plus pressants. Et aujourd'hui, le partenariat entre nos deux pays est plus important que jamais. I would like, first and foremost, to express my profound gratitude towards your country, dear Alfred, to Kenya, and to you personally, for your collaboration these past weeks. As we work to evacuate Canadians, permanent residents, and their families from Sudan, Kenya welcomed them and ensured their safe passage. And so thank you so much for making this happen. The generosity of your people speaks to your generosity speaks to the warmth of Kenyan people. And of course, once again, thank you. I would like to thank you also and President Ruto and the government of Kenya for the leadership role you're playing throughout the crisis in Sudan. The armed conflict in Sudan has taken hundreds of lives, if not more, and also tens of thousands of people have fled their homes. And the ongoing fighting threatens to destabilize the region and trigger a humanitarian crisis in East Africa, one of the biggest that we could see in decades. We must support the Sudanese people in these dire times. Without access to food or water, we must support UN relief efforts and ensure unhindered humanitarian access to Sudan. The UN must be able to do its work. The Kenyan government is working to respond to humanitarian needs in the region, and it is leading efforts to find a peaceful solution to the conflict, both on a bilateral basis and also through IGAD, which is extremely important. And so this work is crucial. And today, my message to Secretary Mutua and also to the President was simple: Kenya can count on Canada. And when there's crisis, well, Canada is there, and we step up. Yesterday, I also met with Canada's humanitarian partners, also with the UN, Martin Griffiths, from the Undersecretary for the UN, and also with the Prime Minister, the former Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, to discuss the conflict in Sudan. We will take concrete action to support Kenya and our partners in the region to find a peaceful solution and to respond to humanitarian needs. We know the need extends throughout the region, including, of course, in Sudan, and we'll have more to say in the coming days about that, but I'm confident that we're on the right track. Nous sommes de tout cœur avec le peuple soudanais. Nous devons travailler ensemble pour trouver une solution pacifique afin de ramener la paix et la démocratie au Soudan. C'est très important. C'est exactement ce que nous faisons et en temps de crise, le Canada répond présent. Nous serons là pour soutenir le Kenya et ses partenaires régionaux. On a final note, I want to reiterate Canada's commitment to deepening our partnership with Kenya. We want to reinforce our diplomatic ties, our economic ties. You were mentioning FIPA. FIPA in Canada is a Foreign Investment Protection Act agreement, and so it's important for us to be able to work on that together. And we want to reinforce our people-to-people ties because there's more than 40,000 Kenyans living in Canada, and we're extremely proud of this great community. Au niveau diplomatique, nous allons continuer notre coopération afin de renforcer la sécurité d'Haïti et de son peuple, et nous allons appuyer les solutions par et pour les Haïtiens pour rétablir la paix. On an economic level, Kenya has a dynamic and innovative population, as well as a growing workforce. We're proud to partner with Kenya to skill up workers, and our countries will work together to enhance labor mobility, so that more Kenyans can come and work in Canada, and so we can create more opportunities for both our peoples. Canada will also continue to partner with Kenya in the fight against climate change and hunger. And as part of this commitment, I'm proud to announce $8 million, that's over 8 billion Kenyan shillings, so that Kenya can provide increased access to food, critical healthcare, and safe water for those in need here in the country. And this is in addition to nearly $100 million in international assistance we deliver to Kenya every single year. And what I want Kenyans to know is that you can count on Canada to continue to be a reliable partner, because Canadians know that we can also count on Kenya. So thank you so much. It will be a pleasure for me to answer your questions.
Thank you. Before we take questions, I just want to say something about a lot of talk, and just want to let you know that Kenya remains ready to host talks aimed at stabilizing Sudan and holding a conversation on the future of Sudan. President Ruto has stated that Kenya will support the UN in its humanitarian efforts, and I agree with you, the UN really needs to get down and do its work.
Yeah.
And in addition, even as we support the humanitarians, we tell the UN to do its work, we will avail Kenya's airspace, including airports such as Lokichogio, Eldoret, and others, for humanitarian support, as well as technical support for any special operation. And so we'll work closely with Canada and other players to ensure there's a lasting solution to the crisis. I want to thank you for the support, especially the 8 billion shillings that you've announced today. We are very grateful on behalf of the people of Kenya. It will go a long way, especially in helping our farmers and our people, and because climate change has really hit us hard.
Yeah.
And we're very grateful about everything we're doing, and we look forward for the bilateral dialogue within the next 2 weeks, so we can put everything down on paper and get moving towards actualization.
And my dear Alfred, you're next to Canada, so looking forward to hosting you.
Yes, we'll be there. We'll be there. Thank you very much. So we'll take questions. Please tell us your media house and your name, and then the question, please, and to who you ask. Yes.
My name is Helen Aura from MTV. This is a question to UCS regarding the crisis that Sudan is in now. As Kenya, are we expecting more evacuees, or are we done with the evacuation of evacuees coming in? Considering now we understand Kenya is not only evacuating Kenyans, plus the other nationalities from the Eastern countries as well.
Diaspora, we have evacuated 409 Kenyans, and we have more Kenyans living in Sudan. You find that there are Kenyans who are outside Khartoum who have decided they want to stay in Sudan. And so we are evacuating anybody who wants to leave Sudan, Khartoum. And I want to thank South Sudan, Ethiopia, and the countries that have allowed Kenyans to cross the border and be able to come here. We have evacuated also in excess of 500 other nationalities, the UN and other countries that are here. We are grateful. Yesterday I met the ambassador, the Canadian ambassador to Khartoum, who is now based in Nairobi, as we look at how things are and we look at how we are supporting. So the evacuation process is still open. It is not closed. We have retained our ambassador and a team in Khartoum. They are working closely with all Kenyans. We have our teams ready to evacuate any Kenyans who needs to leave Khartoum. I get reports every day about Kenyans stuck in different places, and we're able to support them. We've put enough resources, and we've put enough technical support to get Kenyans out.
David Coleman from CBC of Canada. Question for you, Excellency and Minister, related to Sudan. Very clearly, very horrifyingly, a humanitarian crisis brewing in that country. Part of the problem is that humanitarian aid can't get in. The fighting parties are not allowing a corridor to be created to get that aid in. What can Canada, what can Kenya do concretely to get aid in amidst parties who don't even want to talk to one another?
Okay. So let me start. So first and foremost, let me be clear. This is a war about power. This is a war for the sake of control. This is a war for the sake of war. So our goal is to make sure that we get to a ceasefire and also a peaceful solution. And you can count on Canada to make sure that there is an African-led solution. That is why I had the meeting with President Ruto about this issue, and obviously with Secretary Mutua. That is why also Prime Minister Trudeau has been in contact with many of his colleagues, including Prime Minister Abe from Ethiopia, and he will be talking to President Ruto very soon. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the UN must be able to do its work. And so it is important that people in Sudan have access to food, to water, to medicine. There's right now 59 hospitals of the 79 hospitals that are closed. That's unacceptable. Humanitarian law must be respected, and this is a clear message that Canada is sending to the two generals.
Thank you very much. I agree with Minister. Oh, you do it in
Okay,
French?
oui,
Yeah, you can do it in
sorry.
French, yeah?
Yeah, thank you. Alors, lorsqu'on pense à la crise au Soudan, c'est de la nourriture à des médicaments